Hello and welcome to the Jenna Michelle Show. Today we are having a conversation with my friend Greg. You may or may not know, I was wrongfully involuntarily committed by the state of Washington. I had a medical procedure done that resulted in a medical emergency that then resulted in an altered state of consciousness. And I had a whole host of events that took place that resulted in what for me was being wrongfully involuntarily committed by the state of Washington for 7 days, where I did not get access to anything that would make a difference for me healing. I would recommend you watch my first interview here on the Jenna Michelle Show to hear more about my story. And that interview does the best that I can do when it comes to linearly explaining the timeline of events for you to see and judge for yourself. I've been saying since that happened, well, actually before that happened, I desire to create a platform to simply pass the mic to begin to amplify the voices of those that are doing the work that will make a complete difference in altering the landscape that is mental wellness. And Greg is someone I met in September, about 2 months after I got out. And I have been in conversation with him since, and being at the ground floor of SafetyNet, which is, he'll share more, it's the respite center in Tacoma, Washington. Being at the ground floor of this process has been so humbling and has led me to such life and hope, because this is a real thing on the planet. There is now a possibility for people to get help when it comes to their mental wellness in a way that they actually could reach a place of safety and wellness. It's amazing. I will say, those inside of the system, those inside of the mental health system, as he talks about, you're not achieving wellness inside of the system. With what he's creating, there's a real reality that people are going to get well because they get to be well in this space. I'm so excited for this conversation. I'll add all the links down here. Highly recommend you give Greg a follow on Instagram, Drastic Individual. He is a world peace pioneer and completely changing the landscape in the Pacific Northwest when it comes to mental health and the 8 dimensions of wellness. And while yes, in the Pacific Northwest, I'm going to just go on to say, like, he is changing the world. So I'm so honored and so humbled that I get to have this conversation with Greg here today, and so grateful that you are here to participate in this conversation with us. As always, comment down below with anything you'd like to share. Reach out to me on Instagram. I am Jenna Michelle, or you can reach me at the Jenna Michelle Show on Instagram. And all the other links regarding SafetyNet and how to get involved will be down below. And again, thank you. And here we go. I'd love to hear kind of who you are, tell the people who you are and your heart and all that thing that shows up there.
Okay, cool. I'm Greg Jones. For anybody watching this that hasn't come across my brand and my work, by trade, I'm a registered nurse, a bachelor's prepared registered nurse who happens to specialize in psychiatric nursing, which led me to becoming a mental health professional in the state of Washington. And through sharing my story with others, I was encouraged along the way to become a certified peer counselor. And I did do that. So I'm also a certified peer counselor and a 4th-year doctor of nursing practice student with a focus in psychiatric mental health at the University of Kansas Medical Center. And I should have that completed next year. So it's all been very cool to get into the many outlets nursing has to offer. One of them being nurse entrepreneurship, which led me to opening SafetyNet, which is where I'm at right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And SafetyNet officially opened, was it?
December 22nd.
Okay. That
Was
was
it
official.
December? I believe it was December 22nd. We had the ribbon cutting ceremony. It's when it
Okay.
officially opened. And then we actually saw our first guest about 3 days ago,
Oh, really?
which was really cool. Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is so, like, it's real. Like, like watching it being, seeing it from however long ago to you saying that you have your first guest, like, to make that real, like, this is, yeah, I'm over here like, this is unbelievable. And I'm just undone over what you're creating.
Yeah, it's been really a blessing to do it and see it come to life and watch intentionality be materialized and packaged so that it could be experienced for others. And now people are starting to experience the intentionality and engage with it. And it's been very evocative and emotional for most people. So that's really rewarding.
Yeah, it leads a lot, creates a lot of emotion in me. And those who may not know SafetyNet, would you have a way of defining that for those watching?
Yeah, sure. Safety Net's a home-like setting staffed 24/7 by peer counselors where we can seek refuge from stressful situations and engage in activities that help to enhance our wellness. Yeah,
Mm.
people can stay here a maximum of 7 days every 30 days to workshop their wellness and um, engage with counselors and other people in the community when they're having a rough time.
Mhm.
And that's really useful for people who are on the brink of crisis or coming out of a crisis, that pre and post crisis population. That's really who we specialize in and focus on.
This is not something that's existed on this side of the country, I believe, right?
Yeah, this is the first one in the Pacific Northwest period.
Yeah.
We made history here.
Yes. And there are some, but few in other parts of the country.
Yeah, there's a little over 30 in the
Okay.
country. Most of them on the East Coast.
Mhm.
There's a few in like the Southwest, like SoCal and stuff like that. One or
Mhm.
two SoCal, but most of them are like in New York, Connecticut, Georgia, just the East Coast.
What was the catalyst for for you to pursue something like this?
The catalyst for me to become what some may consider a peer service pioneer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
My
And
story.
begin, yes, that and the whole just bring safety net in as a concept and as the seed of safety net.
Well, it's just, the next generation of peer counseling.
Mm.
And I felt called to be a part of that, to push forward the discipline of peer counseling. Before I got into SafetyNet, I'd already gone down other sides of peer support, like becoming a trained psychedelic peer support specialist. That's part of my repertoire too.
Mhm.
And then as time evolved, I learned about peer bridging and tried to go into hospitals and become a peer bridger just through our company alone, Lucid Living. That had its challenges because the institution is the institution. And then we realized we had to campaign to provide and facilitate less restrictive care for people so that they didn't get caught in the rapture of the involuntary detainment enterprise.
Yeah, I
Yeah. So
appreciate that word there.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So in our efforts to really basically protect the vulnerability of our neighbors and friends,
Mhm.
we started campaigning and throwing vigils and applying for grants and doing what we could to build out a community system that wasn't reliant upon the infrastructure that was essentially co-opting the professionals of this region to exploit the vulnerabilities of our neighbors.
Yeah.
When you really look at it, that's what's kind of going on.
Yeah.
These people get trapped in these places and they don't get the support they need coming out of these spaces. So we just said we need safety nets basically in the
Mm.
community, and safety net became a reality.
Mm.
That was
Yeah.
like the original intentionality. As we've continued to grow the concept of safety net and our menu of services, we've entered into various domains and gaps that we could feel just in the community care system that's being built right now. But that was like the original intent that got us here.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you've taken the steps, and then as a result, you've seen different ways in which it's kind of just it's flowered into so many different directions and different nuances that is now the services of care, and just continues to build is what I hear too. It's really
Yeah.
building this from ground floor up in a new.
Yeah. Yeah. It started with an intention to do something for Washingtonians by Washingtonians, completely peer run by people with lived experience with the mental health system, overcoming mental health challenges, and giving us a platform to showcase our ideas and be altruistic in our own community and build community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear so a couple of things. I'm big on the language. So in the concept of a peer, how would you define that? What does it look like? If someone was like, am I a peer? Could I be a peer? What is anything inside of what peer means?
Yeah. Being a peer basically means that you are someone who understands that there is an equal power dynamic at the root of everything social and um, in relationship with community. Like I'm your peer, you're my peer, we're all peers. If it's not this me versus you kind of thing that is kind of proverbial in the clinical domain. It's very partnership oriented. Hey, we're
Mhm.
both in this together.
Mhm.
That's what's really at the root of peer support. I'm not like this person that's on top of you and giving you advice and all this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm your co-pilot.
Mhm.
You're the pilot of your own situation.
And I really hear this, what I've seen too in the just any really healing modality prior to now is just like codependent care. That's like, you're dependent on me. I'm superior than you.
Yeah, and there's none of
Listen
that.
to me.
Yeah.
And then someone's disempowered when they're in these places that have loneliness and crisisness. They're not empowered to feel safe and the dynamics. I mean, I've had many conversations of things where people just live in fear of people overpower over them, especially inside of the mental health system. And involuntary, you can be, taken against your will in this state, and how it causes people to not speak publicly about maybe what they're battling because of fear of what could happen. And so I hear the safety showing up inside of peer, where you really get to show up fully yourself, knowing that you're met with an equal, and how much that will revolutionize so much that I don't even think we can see just how much that alone will revolutionize healing.
Right. And like you said, it's really about keeping you in your power.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there's high probability when you are working with a peer counselor that you're working with someone who's shared similar experiences
Mhm.
as you, and traverse similar challenges.
Mhm.
Speaking from the place of someone who has walked in similar shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just know hands down, it's like that for me, it's been night and day. Talking with someone who's had a similar experience is like, I don't feel so isolated and alone and confused. I actually get it, where it's like when someone tries to insert in to my situation, like they know, when they don't, it's very frustrating and very painful to be projected on and to be manipulated, and this disempowered, and not trusting someone else's own experience is very, I mean, it's just, I don't know if we actually see how disconnected healing actually is from someone when we don't have that ability to meet someone and see them in their power. Like, I just don't know how to heal someone when they're, yeah, I just don't know if it's possible, I guess, is what shows up. So the new paradigm
Yeah.
is powerful.
Yeah. It's very misaligned when you even come at it with that kind of perspective.
Yeah.
When you're seeing care through that kind of lens, it's extremely misaligned. I think it's honestly the bane of the traditional medical system. It's part
Yeah.
of their demise.
Yeah, I agree. And really what has left me, I mean, just going through my traumatic event, going to SafetyNet and seeing what you guys are creating. I mean, I bawl my eyes out about every time I go there, and just this whole like the access to actual things that would heal you. I think one of the main things that I get so worked up about is I know what I need, and I knew I didn't get access to the sun. I didn't get access to the ground. I didn't get access to anything that would have helped me for 10 days.
Yeah.
I could get the iPad for YouTube at some point in time, and I did some yoga sometimes, and that was about it. And just not having access was so detrimental to my experience. And so very emotional seeing that there. And I guess, is there anything you want to expand on or share, like some components of SafetyNet that you put your heart and soul into that makes healing possible?
Speaking on what you just talked about, not being able to go outside, this is one of the core components of being at safety net is being in relationship with nature and our surroundings. Being out here on this screen and porch. I'm at safety net right now. I'm talking to
If
you
we
through
said
our
that.
mesh Wi-Fi system. Yeah, like we're on the safety net's Wi-Fi. I'm
Yeah.
out on the screened in porch in an egg chair. You know, dogs are barking. Yeah, there's a dog right now. Every time he thinks he sees me, he like freaks out. Yeah, we'll see how that goes as we get more traction. And we'll either have to build a fence or just like feed him hot dogs.
There you go.
Um, but yeah, like we're out here and we got a propane heater in the middle that's got fire. We've got stone. We've got natural air, natural light, wind gushing through the screens, and you can really ground out here. You can
Mhm.
really engage in communication. I'll tell you a quick story. The first guest we had the other day, he shows up. He just wanted a tour. This is a guy I met at a pizza shop, heard about Safety Net, wanted to come, was really excited about the idea of it being a reality. Stopped by here, got a tour. And then once he realized that he was actually eligible to be here and that his insurance would cover it, he started crying. And then he's like, "Can I get some counseling?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, of course you can get some counseling." And guess where he wanted to be? He wanted to be out here on the screened in porch. We sat on that sectional for about 45 minutes to an hour. We talked about trauma. We talked about how much we've healed, what we're doing to stay well. He hopped on his motorcycle and went back to work. So the first guest at SafetyNet was out here he wanted to have his counseling session out here on the screen and porch. So
Yeah.
this thing was a headache to actually get done in terms of construction and permitting and all the things that go along with that. But that first guest wanting to be out here for some engagement and conversation honestly made all of that worthwhile.
Yeah. And I don't know when or if I'll ever stop crying over the stories that you have of people coming through SafetyNet, because that is so powerful.
Yeah, it was
And
cool.
yeah, I really hear too, like that's what our bodies desire. That's like when we have a space to really be in our heart and to heal in our bodies, we want to be outside these boxed in rooms, keeping us in our head and having these dialogues in your brain. Like it cognitive therapy really is not going to heal trauma. And so being able to take people and relax their bodies and have them feel like at home and rested, like the possibility of healing is just I'm just like, I don't think we even can conceptualize what is happening right now. And I'm just so excited to watch you grow and see what grows here and see what happens. And I mean, I see a short amount of time, like what's possible in the time, just how quickly this is going to make a difference.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying.
Yeah, I know. Yes, you're too close to it. You're too close to it to see it. There's a whole thing there. And, um, and really what I would say too, something that I'm really passionate about is this concept of being a self healer and learning how to self heal and really empower when you are left in your power and see that it's possible. I just really don't see a model that we've been taught where we actually have the power to heal. We've been, again, this kind of codependency healing that we've been preached, that I need someone that's smarter than me to tell me what to do so then I'm better. And so
Yeah, heal me.
yeah, heal me, fix me, save me. And to see it, leaving people in their power, there's something I say too is, or something I've heard is,
Keeping
what was that?
keeping people in their power.
Ooh, keeping people in their power is that unconditional love, being fully known and fully loved transforms someone, and really letting people again do their own inner work to do the transformation, because they're going to go with them always. And so being able to see that, yeah, you have a blip on their radar, and how do you keep them in their power? So that's that self-healing journey stays fueled and really helping catch them. And I see actually, as I say that too, like when someone knows there's a safety net, it's almost like you don't even necessarily need to fall because you know that it's there. So then it helps you not fall. Is that something you're experiencing or perceiving too?
That's kind of the whole point. Safety net is really only there to catch you when you fall. The main thing is having that security as you walk the tightrope of life,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to use the skills that you've picked up here and the outlets that you've been connected to through your contact with this space to keep you balanced,
Yeah.
as you continue your journey.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
if you happen to fall off course, we'll always be here to help you. And that's a beautiful thing. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to have that, because we all fall short, we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's part of like the whole predisposition of the peer counselor at safety net. Like, they're human too. They've fallen short.
Mm-hmm.
We're not perfect people. I'm not a perfect person.
Yeah.
And the Bible is full of imperfect people.
Yeah. And I hear too, as you say that, this concept of like, you fall into a safety net or you fall into the pits of hell. Like that's what the difference between here. And it is, quite honestly, I'll say all the time, like it is the pits of hell that people are going into with this experience with no hope. And what I am passionate about, I'm passionate about what you're doing too, is just why I am redeeming this word hope, that I really truly do see that you do truly and are truly reviving and bringing hope in regards to healing, especially inside of psychiatric and mental healing, which is this taboo. Let's not talk about it. It's this thing that you've got some demons, so now you got to battle it on your own.
Word.
And this the hell on earth experience that people are trapped in, that they don't have access of getting out. And so for me, just seeing the courage of people who have healed, done the work, and then being a space, because it really isn't scary when you really have when you do the own work, it's not scary. It's those that have this weird perceived notion. I don't know if you would expand on anything there. I think fear is a theme that I see over and over again. Those inside of systems or privileged spaces who haven't quote unquote battled with this, they see those with mental health challenges as so scary. Is there anything you would add in there with your perspective?
It's always interesting when I see people who are so convinced that they haven't had any issues, you know. And like these are like, these people obviously tortured. Like if you listen to them talk about their jobs or their marriage or whatever they got going on, it's like, you might want to talk to somebody, you know. And why are you so quick to judge someone else who's struggling?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you really have going on? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, are you really as liberated as you think you are?
Mm-hmm.
Because where's your empathy?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So
That
so it's just very interesting when I hear about people. Oh, like I don't deal with anything. I'm so afraid of somebody who's having a bad day. Like obviously you haven't really gone through anything, or you just don't have any empathy. Either
mm,
way, you know, life will show you.
mm-hmm.
Life will show you how low vibrational it can be. We're in a low vibrational plane for
Yeah.
the most part,
Yeah.
and we're all here workshopping our subconscious inclination towards greed, gluttony, anger, pride, envy, lust, and sloth. Everybody deals with that kind of stuff
Yeah.
in some kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has some deficit across the 8 domains of wellness, the 8 dimensions of wellness: mental, physical, spiritual, social, emotional, environmental, fiscal, and occupational wellness. Everybody's dealt with something there. Being able to acknowledge that is the first part of actually turning that situation around.
Yeah.
So to be convinced that you have no deficits shows extreme lack of self-awareness on most people's parts, unless you're perfect. And if you are, I'd love for you to give me a call so that we could like put you under a microscope and like send your DNA to the CIA.
Exactly. We want to learn from you.
Yeah,
And
we need
for
to talk
me,
to
I'm like, here's the
you.
reader board of all the ways I'm wrong. Like I blast my experiences out so loud to show the world like my demons or my problems or my challenges, which honestly, quite honestly, I live in such a privileged state. My challenges are so minute compared to those that are truly battling it out. And I can't say I've had the same mental health battles that many have that I'm friends with, that I'm just like, we don't normalize these. We're so in the closet with these conversations. And my desire and what I campaign for is to normalize these. I talk publicly about my experience and everyone like disappears from it. And it's like, we got to
Yeah.
get comfortable with this.
Well, everyone's on their own journey,
Mm,
and there really is no comparison. And especially when you whether you're comparing who's had it worse, who's had it best, it's the thief of joy. You know,
mm,
every time you start comparing it, because we all have to go through our own version of the hero's journey,
mm-hmm,
you know, trying and persisting in the face of challenge and difficulty, and figuring out some stick to itness in the face of calamity and misfortune, something that could keep us grounded and moving towards the light, you know, that transcendental horizon I talk about. Well, what's
mm-hmm,
keeping you going? You know,
mm-hmm,
and what's keeping you alive? Are you alive? What
mm-hmm.
does alive even mean to you?
Ooh,
Uh
that's a question that hits.
yeah.
Are
So
you
so
even alive?
are you even alive? You
Mm-hmm,
know, what does it mean to you to be alive?
mm-hmm,
We're all on our own journey, and that happens on different levels. You know, there's some people who have it all, what some would consider to be it all, you know, quote unquote it all, and they're miserable.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that doesn't make their misery any better than the person who doesn't have much at all. You know, I mean, who am I to judge who's really struggling? Everybody's on their own like level, their own road with similar hazards. Is just a different kind of road. There's hazards everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you sharing that too, because it is, as someone who speaks publicly about what I'm going through, that perception of judgment or this is better, this is not, and I find myself inside of those spaces often, and it is Like I kind of say it too, like we're all in first player, role player, character mode. Like I do not have a way to conceptualize it. And we all are doing the work. We're all doing what we've been called to do with our own unique purposes and all of that. And so I appreciate you expanding on that more. And
Yeah.
I want to just simply normalize that we get to talk about the highs and the lows and how to hold two things as true at the same time, which I really see as an area we're not strong in as a society.
Yeah, we gotta have some respect
Mm.
for each other's journeys, stories, challenges, traversed wins, all of that stuff.
Question I have for you. Do you hold a vision, have a vision, anything in regards to the vision of with where we're headed when it comes to mental health, wellness, the dimensions of wellness that you talk about and embodying that?
Yeah, I think we're headed towards an era where wellness is prioritized across the 8 dimensions, and people are doing what they can to be proactive about fortifying their wellness base and having a self care system
Mm.
that keeps them in the game and optimizes their experience in life.
Mm. Self-care system. Yeah, that's a concept I haven't heard. And as you said that, I'm just like, how do you even start? How does one even know how to build that? Is that even a concept we could even play around with, or those that are watching? Is there a
Oh,
concept?
absolutely.
How does that look?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you got to understand what your self care requisites are first. And you have to take an inventory of what your deficits are and
Mhm.
really be honest with yourself. Sometimes it takes something very cathartic for that to transpire
Yeah.
with people, or, some mind altering experience
Yeah.
that gives them an opportunity to see things in a different light, in a new light, or
Yeah.
from a renewed perspective.
Yeah, it's fascinating you say that too, because what's tied up is the concept between mind altering and it creating a sobriety and how that those tie together. Because it is, you have these mind altering experiences and it sobers you up to reality in a way that you can't unsee what you've saw to
It's
be able
very
to.
sobering. Yeah. People,
Yeah.
contrary to popular belief,
Yeah.
a non-ordinary state of consciousness can be extremely sobering.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
There's a quote that a friend has mentored me or coached me on is that the only thing that someone can take from you is an illusion. And
Yeah.
so it's been very sobering for me when I'm faced with something and have that whole upset or emotion because my expectation was one way and life is a different way. It's like the only thing that can be taken from you is an illusion, and really see how much going to these altered states of consciousness, mind altering experiences, you get to see that experience beyond, and there is you can't unsee it once you see it, and I think a lot of people are scared of that. Is there anything you'd say in that based on your experience, or someone maybe in that space of present to fear and also curious?
When most people are avoiding wholeness, I
Mm.
just pray that they fall softly.
You have
It's
like
just,
quote like that was that sentence right there, avoiding wholeness. Oh
yeah.
yeah, that you pray they fall softly. That'll preach.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
all I can say to those people.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe you have something that'll happen that inspire you to be more proactive about auditing what your self-care requisites are, putting goals in place and working towards those goals to build up a system that you can rely on, an action plan that's based in recovering your wellness
yeah.
and keeping you moving towards the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like for you.
And what I see too is this experience as you're talking, I always get pictures and whatnot, but it's like this table and it's like the culture is tilting in such a way that's like everyone's going to be falling down and facing the music in a way of what is actual reality. And it's like the sooner you could take the leap of seeing what's here, the quicker that gets to be there. And there is so much fear. And again, fear is an illusion. And so being able to really, I see it for me as leaning into the edge of fear. When there is that fear, it's almost more of a reason to spotlight why is that there compared to letting that subconscious manifest a locked experience that you're unable to grow in.
Yeah, and optimistically, it doesn't take some your rocklodon transpiring in life for you to come to the realization of what is possible for you.
Yeah. And
You
you have to
know,
say that word again because I've never heard this word.
your rocklodon,
Your aquadon.
your rocklodon.
Euroclidon. What does Euroclidon mean? Or I can Google it too.
Uh,
This whole episode is just going to be me like putting dictionary definition words as word.
a Euroclydon is a cyclonic tempestuous northeast wind which blows in the Mediterranean mostly in autumn and winter. A stormy wind from the north.
Mm. And to see
Yeah.
that like getting tossed to and fro. And I do see there's a culture out there that is getting very tossed to and fro. And those that have gone through these battles get to be ones that have weathered the storms and found their own ways to withstand it, and really see you providing a space for people to learn how to have solid ground in the storms with actual real tangible healing possible, which is really not, again, I speak from my own experience, not possible inside of the system. And so I appreciate what you're doing to continue to create that as possible.
Yeah, like imagine walking a tightrope in a windstorm.
Mm,
You can't do it alone,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
That's why I thank God for so much support in the way he's fortified my strength, as I've moved forward into things that were uncertain and weathered the storms of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say things like where we are right now with SafetyNet and our community is a testament to what the will to persevere can do.
Yeah. And really see as you step out in faith with a commitment to bring wholeness to yourself and the wholeness to that and serve those in that way. For me, in my experience, stepping out into this space, I'd love for you to expand on what shows up for you. Like there is a force that helps you accomplish things that are beyond like you're like, at least,
Yeah, absolutely. It's beyond myself.
yeah.
I earnestly believe that. I'm not here to reduce everything down to me. I never proclaim to be, you know, the second coming of anything that people pedestalize. I don't want to be pedestalized.
Yep.
I'm a imperfect human, just
Mm-hmm.
like you. That's why I stand for peer support, because I'm not here to be pedestalized. I have a past too. I have things I've gone through too. I'm not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
I
love how
just
you said that. Yeah.
I'm just willing to do what I feel God's called me to do.
Yeah.
And I pray that God continues to guide me in that regard, and the fruitfulness that's come from honoring that guidance, or what I felt that guidance to be, is proving to be real.
Yeah. And I hear it was where we're headed to this, like the pedestals annihilated, like the pedestals
Yeah.
aren't going to work anymore.
Yeah,
And
don't pedestalize me.
yeah. And that's one reason too why I like to wild out a lot of experiences too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't pedestal me. Like I will show you how much I'm not to be pedestalized. Like I will take myself off and
Yeah.
into my own detriment at times, because I am also afraid of stepping into this, whatever God's creating here, and this experience of whatever each person's individual experience is, walking through their own path. And I really see this individualized and really removing of codependency to let each person have their own lived expression, whatever that may be like, and really see that. And what you're creating is this honoring space of wherever someone's at, and that really allowing for God to exist inside of healing, while also allowing the space for everyone to hold their lived experiences. So I don't know if anything shows up inside of that with what you're creating and seeing too.
Yeah, for sure. Just honoring the divinity in people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. Honoring that seed of divinity that's in all of us and watering it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And doing that in concert with interventions around mental wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're talking about mental wellness doesn't necessarily mean that we should just exclusively focus on spiritual, nor just because we're talking about spiritual doesn't mean that we should, neglect mental. Like there's interventions for both.
Mm-hmm.
There's emotional wellness too. And
Mm-hmm.
mind you, there's connections and they're all interrelated, but we have to really individualize how we build upon the deficits we have in the 8 dimensions, what we do to supplement our self-care system. It looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
But I have seen such neglect around spiritual wellness in the traditional medical system, and even in what some would consider this new age recovery movement in mental health. A lot of people don't even want to talk about God, but
Hmm.
like what you guys are touting the 8 dimensions of wellness. So what does spiritual wellness mean to you? That's why I'm so happy we've been asking that question and starting those conversations and really speaking to that silent majority in the spiritual community that just yearns to see divinity honored in all who have the capacity to explore that.
Yeah, and that shows up to this whole topic that, we've been digging into, this spiritual wellness and spiritual crisis. And that's something that I've been digging into, researching. I didn't know it was even a term that was there. There's a whole world inside of that. And so anything inside of spiritual crisis that or I guess the better question is defining spiritual crisis. What is that and what does that show up and how have you discovered that?
Spiritual emergencies
Yes.
are, yeah, just in situations that tear us under your illusions and send the sanctuary of your own ignorance crashing down around you in very paranormal ways, some may say.
Hmm.
Yeah, paranormal experiences.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's heightened perception. You can have some psychic stuff. You can have some, Kundalini things with chi. And it's a whole domain. I suggest people, we could do a whole podcast just on that. And I suggest people read Stanislav Grof's book, Spiritual Emergency, to kind of get into that, or look at what the different spiritual emergencies are. There's different classifications. You got shamanic crisis. You have all kinds of things, renewal processes, all kinds of stuff that happens to people that has more of a spiritual flair to it than some of the things we've tried to reduce down to chemical imbalances in the brain. You can't reduce everything people go through down to that. Some things have spiritual influence that permeates people's behaviors, their thought patterns, and their sleep cycles, things that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I love that. Somebody's probably migrating. Yeah. That's like a sign for me. That's a big part of my past. I've I was always fascinated with that one geese in the front. Like, how does he know where to go?
He's got your
Yeah,
number.
yeah, and I've always honored the idea of God guiding that one geese in the front, and they all kind of switch roles, but there's like this innate trust that they have between each other and within themselves that they're all gonna get there,
Mm.
with this benevolent compass in all of them, beyond all of them, guiding them towards what's going to sustain them and keep them alive. It's very interesting to me, that whole system they have.
And definitely seen some metaphor and overlap in that. Yeah, the way in which we are designed and created to operate in harmony in that word that you'd really speak into, and how we're so detached from the innate structure of how we were designed, and how
Exactly.
we see birds, we see all this thing in these beautiful unique ways we're supposed to cohabitate, and then we look where we're at and it's just opposite.
It's like dysfunction and
Yeah,
disarray and
it's just pure chaos. And
yeah,
so
just go shitting everywhere.
so I hear for you,
Yeah,
you see and tapped into this possibility that we really could cohabitate and really orchestrate in a way that's divinely guided. And that's the
absolutely,
possibility of
absolutely, yeah, and coexist.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, coexist, dude.
And then with that too, I've had some pretty wild aligned animals and birds and things like that. And so I geek out on that stuff too. And it's beautiful when you can start tapping into some of that I don't know if it's a dimension or if it's just where you're at with I don't know if that you would speak to someone who's like, I have an audience that I don't know, it's just not in this space. And so I too live from this space of like, I see a hawk when it comes to here. I had one time where I stepped on a snake when I was doing a 24-hour silent retreat with God. Like, I have all these really divine guided things, that animals and birds and all this stuff. So
Yeah,
is there anything
synchronicities.
inside of that you would say that,
Synchronicity.
yeah,
It's just
synchronicity.
synchronicity. We anchor these moments and these realizations we have at certain points and junctures of our life.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it'll show back up to give you confirmation that, hey, yeah, you are integrating this lesson. You are
Mhm.
integrating this insight. You're on the right path,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like I said, we're not in this alone.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with that too, when you were speaking on the concept of spiritual emergencies and mental mental, I guess, imbalances would be the other distinction. Would you say those are two distinct experiences on the planet where you truly see people with mental imbalances chemically
Oh,
that would
yeah.
be in its own bucket, and then there are true spiritual emergencies that truly are exist as a different experience altogether?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that there are times when there may be a little bit of overlap.
Mhm.
I'd be remiss if I said they were just two absolute different. I'm not an absolutist at all.
Yeah, yeah,
But for the most part, yeah, they are different things and they're different.
yeah. I
Yeah.
see that. And for my own experience and what I've been down, I didn't know that was a thing. And now being able to see what I went through, seeing it as a spiritual crisis emergency, it was something to me, to my detriment, being pushed down the path of it had to be a mental imbalance when I was very clear that it wasn't, was damaging to me, quite honestly, and damaging to me with being so public. It's very clear for people when they see me share publicly that they believe that I need to be on medication or that I have bipolar or this projection, because again, I've chose to go very public with my experience. To me, at my heart level, I feel wounded and continue to work through my own hook and listening to other people project their stuff on me, and really see, I guess, as I say that, there's just really no context for things being anything other than a mental disorder. Is that maybe what I've been facing or what I've been up against?
Maybe in the traditional sense of how people see mental health challenges and that whole mystified domain of instability.
Mm.
But in the DSM-5, there is a category called spiritual and religiosity problems. And there has been progress made over the past, I would say, maybe 20 to 50 years of psychologists who have an affinity for the spiritual influences and on health and wellness, and
Mhm.
particularly within the domain of transpersonal psychology.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's people who've been wanting it to be accounted for and doing the work.
yeah,
And I'd be remiss if I didn't honor that work that's been done, because it's part of the reason why I can sit here and do what I do now
yeah,
and talk about the stuff I'm talking about. It's not just
yeah.
too far out. Like, I'm not the only person talking about this.
Yeah. And I see too, like that, and a lot, quite honestly, there's someone, the, there's a book. I don't know. Have you heard of the book of am I bipolar or am I awake or am I waking up? Have you heard that book yet?
No, it sounds interesting.
The book, I've had a conversation with him. 1996, he had a spiritual awakening crisis situation and chose to go the path of seeing it that way and not going down the bipolar path and whatnot. And so I look forward to having him there and the content around that, as it's not something I can tap into, or nor do I have education, and really getting to see there's people who have been doing work for so long and holding the space of spiritual crisis emergencies is a real thing. And so
Yeah.
really leveraging the work that they've done, because I think we're all just beginning to wake up to this as a real thing.
Yeah, touche, touche. Maybe in terms of within becoming popular within the domain of general awareness, it's starting but to become a conversation. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. It's like it's starting to become a real conversation at the dinner table.
Yeah. And I see too, as you say that it really, to say it's separate wouldn't be accurate. And quite honestly, there is a massive overlap, because there's no one that's having a chemical imbalance that doesn't also have a spiritual aspect to their existence. So there's no way
Yeah.
to distinguish between the two. I think for me and my experiences, knowing myself, knowing the work I've done, knowing the work I can do, I also know, because when I went in, they told me I had to take medication to get out. I hadn't been taking medication for I think 3 or 4 days that I was in there, and I wanted to get out, and I did not want to take medication. And they were like, you have to take this to get out. And I just was so angry, and I was torn between this. Like, what do I do? I want to get out. I'm also know that I'm right, and I know that I don't need to do this, and was having this very torn experience. And so I did go on it. I did choose to stay on it to see what would happen. And I have that kind of logged in experience. I was very in a just depressed state, and getting off of it myself, I came back to life in a way that I was grateful for. And so being medicated when I really didn't need it, I believe, is what has been fascinating to me, and the experiences that I've had around that. And I'm also not a doctor. I don't know what I'm doing, and choose my own expression of trusting what works for me. And so, yeah, that whole world has been very fascinating, and just it was fascinating to have it projected on me in that way.
Yeah, I bet, man. It's been people who have been really traumatized by that and who haven't had the strength to be so public and open about how challenging that whole paradigm is. I mean, just
Mm,
hearing you talk about it, I just saw so many faces and
mm,
just had so many memories of my days working on those units. I worked in crisis stabilization, jail diversion, evaluation and treatment, competency restoration for like 4 years.
mm,
I was the nurse passing those meds,
mm,
sitting on the floor and talking with people through some of the most challenging moments in their lives. So
mm.
it's been very interesting to hear that come from you in a variety of ways, and I'm really inspired by your story.
Thank you. And I am so, like, my whole thing's like, I'm so ignorant. People like to tell me I'm not ignorant. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm simply showing up and saying things, what's real for me. And there I bump into some corners, which is simply lack of information. This world I didn't know existed, and was very, very, very sheltered. And what also, quite honestly, made my situation hard. I didn't know that, the Christ, like, I didn't, well, because the case that was against me, it said ED. And I was like, I don't even know what ED means. I don't even know that these things exist. Like, it was such a culture shock to me to be taken into a space that I didn't know. And so I think people struggle to see or actually know that these places exist to the degree that they do. And so when I speak publicly, there's not people just are justified that that's okay. People should be treated this way, and that's what we need to do. And just the hope that you bring for people, like you said, getting more upstream is really what I'm most excited about. And
For
there's
sure.
another stat, and I don't know if you know it, like the percentage of people who have mental crises in their life, like, it's pretty high, isn't it?
The percentage of people who actually have mental crises,
Mhm.
I don't know that exact number.
Yeah.
I just know more about like depression prevalence, suicide prevalence, suicide attempt prevalence, and things like that.
Any stats that show up there that you'd want to share?
Yeah, one thing I would say is that in Pierce County, for instance, right? Let's make it really relevant to where we're at. Let's talk about Pierce County. There's a higher rate of depression than statewide average, Pierce County. And suicide was one of the top 10 leading causes of death here. So people are dealing with a lot of darkness in Pierce County. And having SafetyNet in this community has been received by the block we're on with so much gratitude and reverence for the space. And people are starting to look out for this place and feel excited about bringing ketamine assisted groups to the area too,
Yeah.
which should really enhance some accessibility to novel therapeutic approaches to treating treatment resistant depression, because about 50 to 60% of people with depression do not respond therapeutically to antidepressants, to SSRIs. So we're standing in the gap for those people, because a lot of the times getting ketamine to potentially alleviate it, which data has shown it can, is very expensive.
Mhm.
By doing it in a group therapy dynamic or just in a peer support group dynamic here at Safety, that makes it really accessible, where people really only have to pay out of pocket for the ketamine, and we bill their insurance for group therapy. Now the working class person who works at Safeway can get ketamine for their treatment resistant depression and have it grounded in harm reduction and integration therapy. That's very fascinating.
So fascinating. And I
Yeah.
have a friend who I hope to have on the show someday. She's taken her about 3 years to recover from her uh, traumatic experience and what she went through in the hospital and whatnot. And she just did ketamine, and she's like, it just saved my life. Like, she has that big of an experience. It truly saved
Right.
her life.
Right. So that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Like, that's really cool for Pierce County, but it's even more cool that it's happening in a peer respite where people can use this as a platform to integrate the insights acquired in those sessions. They can use them in your services. They can stay here on the nights that they get ketamine, and they don't have to go back to their roommates. They don't have to go back to their tumultuous marriage. They can stay here for a couple of days and integrate the session and regain their their footing before stepping back out into the world. And it's really cool to see that be a possibility here
Yeah.
at the
And
first peer respite in the Pacific Northwest too. It's like history on top of history.
yeah, it is like that's why I'm like, this is gonna live on YouTube and like time will pass and there will be a day when this is like 3 years down the road and we'll get to look back and be like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this is history in the making. I feel so honored, privileged, and just undone over like this is a real thing and the timing of it all. Like I agree. I time with, synchronicity, radical alignment is the term that I use, and know that for me, I see God orchestrating something that is so beyond what we can even perceive. And this component of really removing the platforms and bringing us all down on common ground where we begin to really create environments where we love, care, serve, and support each other, and just seeing it like you make it be able to be seen. And so I just am moved by who you are, moved by what you're creating. I know you have visions of other ones in the future, and it's like obviously big dreams and baby steps, as I like to say, as it's like we're all
Yeah.
human.
Yeah. The
And
Bible says, be fruitful, then multiply.
yeah. Oh, I like that. Be fruitful, then multiply. I haven't heard that one. I've heard it. I just didn't conceptualize it in that way. So
It
I
really
need
says be
that.
fruitful and multiply, I think. But
Okay. It's
I take it as be fruitful, then multiply.
exactly.
Multiply
I
without
can
the
see
fruit.
that. Yes, I love that. And then with those, for those kind of the message for those listening, I know I'm eager to be of contribution and be in connection with what you're creating. If someone else here is interested in being involved or even learning more about what you're doing, is there a space where they could go?
Absolutely. They can send their information to info@transitionalcare.net.
Mhm.
They can also reach out to me directly on Instagram at drastic individual on Instagram.
Mhm.
And yeah, even if you go to transitionalcare.net and just fill out our contact form, we'll get to see it. We'll talk with you. We got also some interest forms for people to interview, to engage in their pre-interview if they're interested in using SafetyNet just as a place to workshop their wellness. I can give you that, so you can put that link in the bio.
I love that.
Also have an interest form for ketamine assisted groups. So if anyone is watching this and they're dealing with treatment resistant depression, they've tried 2 or more antidepressants and they're still depressed, we are willing to screen and see if you are eligible for participating in ketamine assisted groups here at SafetyNet in Tacoma. So we'll also include that interest form link in the bio as well. And we're just looking forward to being of service to the community and growing in concert with this community.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a restorative endeavor.
It's yeah. I am undone over it and just beyond excited. I appreciate you taking your time out of, yes, your busy schedule. I know you're still working as a nurse and making all this happen, and just simply I just getting to see you surrender to what God's doing in your life has been an encouragement and an inspiration to me, that just the being able to see it done, it's so moving.
Oh yeah, and we're also, thank you. I'm happy you acknowledge that. And we're also doing pray phone and
Oh,
giving
yes.
prayer donations. Yeah, we are accepting prayer donations. So if you'd like to donate prayer to pray phone, go to prayphone.org, check it out, and reach out to us, man. We'd love to come to where you are and get a prayer to help people in this community navigate challenging thoughts and
Okay.
emotions.
We save the best for last. So you have to share like pray phone and what that means and your vision, how that's there. Is there anything you can expand on that? I would have you talk forever on this, and I
Pray
also want
phone.
to respect your time. Did I
I
say
think pray phone's a whole episode, but what I
yes,
will say
exactly.
about pray phone is that pray phone is a spiritual wellness intervention. That's essentially what it's about. It's about the spiritual community coming together to help enhance the spiritual wellness of our community as a whole.
Yeah.
And we're using the commonality of prayer as a platform to help people in this community navigate challenging thoughts and emotions. So when someone stumbles across a pray phone kiosk and they request that prayer on that info plate for anxiety or fear or rejection, they get a prayer that's been recorded by someone in this community for them in that moment. And it's been a blessing to really uh, play a major part in facilitating that exchange. It's been very rewarding to me.
Yeah, it's so like as someone who's donated a prayer, so I think it's a pray phone
Number
two,
one, you're in pray phone number one.
pray phone number one, and I think I'm number two, which
Oh
is
yeah, yeah. I don't know what your
rejection.
number is. Yeah, but
I
that's
think it's
awesome.
rejection. Or no, I know it's rejection. I think it's sometime. All that to say, being a
Yeah,
part of that experience, and for me in the space of donating that prayer, like it brings me to so much emotion because it's like you've created this vision that, and these. So if I'll try to add a picture somewhere on here so people can see, it
yeah,
is reclaimed and these pieces of art that you've taken from old payphones, redeemed them to the space where people now can pick up the call, dial a number, be prayed for, listen to music you have written, and then also connect with someone at SafetyNet, all inside
yeah,
of this one little piece that you've lit this
yeah,
mastermind in a way that's and you're the like hands and feet creating these things, which I got
yeah.
to experience too, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, you really did come to the pray phone secret location. Like you're such an insider, and I respect you for that and love that. I was looking at that footage the other night, and I was like, man, Jen is really like a part of our community, and it's just such a blessing to have you around. So, thanks
Thank
for
you.
all the showing up you've done and all the generative support you've lended.
Yeah. I'm here to just simply, I want the world to know. And so I'll add all the stuff and all the comments and bottom to help find you there. If you want to donate a prayer, highly recommend that. It's gonna, we like I would say, you're changing the planet, and I will say we're changing the planet.
Yeah, we are.
Everyone who's watching this, you are a part of this happening. Like
Yeah,
we are no longer in this like isolated world. What
yeah.
we're creating, everyone's coming in, and we want to invite people in as a real thing. So just thank you for showing up and being real. And I will be creating this, send this out. So thank you, Greg. You're the best.
Cheers,
Be
no
in touch
doubt.
as
Thanks for
always.
having me.
We'll talk soon.